So round two.
Round two. Okay, so we have additional questions. Discuss as a group what strategies have we seen that flatten or lengthen the cash flow curve. Specifically, try to draw the cash flow curves for Dr. John's products, Rent the Runway, and Dropbox as they were described in the cases. Just make a rough guess as to the shapes of each of these cash flow curves.
Well, I would say I want to say Rent a Runway would probably have a really nice curve. But I'm trying to remember the numbers on Dr. John's. Let's see if I can find my stuff here. And I want to say the Dropbox would too. They seem to do things, you know, they had that like slow growth and development. I'll have to go back to Dr. John's. See what I can find.
Our first Zoom meeting just finished converting, so I'm going to the link.
So
Okay.
I'm going to do, let's, I'm going to do a screen share real fast.
Okay.
Let's see. You guys see those doodles?
Uh-huh.
So my thought is with Rent the Runway on the left, because they've got a lot of inventory that has a very high cost, they'd have a very deep trough it would take them longer to get back to cash positive. But once they did, it seems like they'd have a pretty good, a pretty steep curve after that and be able to bring in a lot. Dr. John's, where they've got a lot of they have a lot of inventory, but it's pretty low cost. I think they'd also have they'd have a trough that's not as deep as Rent the Runway, and once they got out of it, just not quite as steep as Rent's, but a good upward curve after that. With Dropbox, I figured they don't have a lot of assets in play, and so there's not going to be a very deep curve, but it's going to take longer for them to get back to cash positive, just because
it's a free service and they have to get paying customers. I get that.
Exactly. They have to build up that really big base. And I think actually it would probably be pick up a little bit steeper later on, but it's going to take a long time for them to get back there. Though that's my thought.
Yeah. I agree with most of these. I think Dr. John's will be a little bit shallower, like like you said, it'll take them longer, but I agree. Rent, I know that they had that big inventory, but it took them like 2 months to get to a positive, to pay off all the. So it did go steep at first, but I think they have a higher, or it will go steeper quicker.
So you think it would look more like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But other than that, yeah, I agree.
I think those are my best guesses too. Let's see. Okay.
Okay. Next, describe to each other what would happen to Dr. Jones if they had decided to build an independent company rather than get acquired. What activities would John have had to do differently? What impact on the cash flow curve would these activities have? Flatten or steepen? Shallow or deepen? Increase or decrease time to pay back?
Well, definitely it helped them to have the money, once they were acquired. If they, and I think that was probably their idea from the get-go. It seemed like he had a bunch of other businesses prior to that, and that was just what he did. He came up with a good product, he developed it, he marketed it, had really good marketing, and then he got rid of it and moved on to his next adventure. So I think it helped that they kind of, the way they did it. What impact would it have on that cash curve? Well, obviously it helped, I think, get there. Oh, yay, Tori made it.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I think it helped them to be acquired, because then they had that, financial backing that they needed for the cash to go further.
Okay.
That's my thoughts.
So Tori, right now what we're talking about is with Dr. John's the toothbrush thing. If they had decided to be acquired, how would that affect their cash flow, and what could they have done to, and what different things could they have done to create a better cash flow, or what would have hurt their cash flow?
Oh, for this pen brush?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it helped him have more time to pay things back, but so I think it like flattened out their curve a little bit more, made it longer. That's just my guess.
Yeah, I think you're right with that. Like, if they, because if they stayed independent as opposed to get acquired, their sales would not increase as rapidly, which without increasing sales, it's harder to get a larger cash flow. So it would stay more flat and level, but it would probably be easier to get back to cash positive sooner. They just wouldn't have as big of returns afterwards.
Right.
Okay. discuss the same for Rent the Runway? If the founders of RTR have been able to convince the dress designers to retain ownership of the dresses, what impact would that have had on RTX's cash flow curve? Flatten or steepen, shallow or deepen, increase or decrease time to payback?
For that one, I definitely think that would have made it more shallow. They wouldn't have had to invest so much in buying dresses and getting inventory, but then it would have kind of flattened their line because they would have had to pay these designers, for a share of their dresses and be able to use their dresses over time.
Well, and
so
I think they would have had a hard time convincing the designers to do that because, what designer is going to want to do that?
Right, and I think that's why they weren't able to convince them, so they had to go and decide that, let's just buy our own dresses from these designers. And so
yeah, but if you think that they only have to rent it like 3 times to pay for it, that
right. Oh, it's worth it for sure.
Actually, it was like 2.5 times, but yeah.
But they had to buy like multiple dresses too. I mean, it would never have been a bad thing to not own it, I don't think.
Right.
I
wonder, and I don't know if I even recall hearing it, that didn't they have an option for people who wanted to? They could keep the dress or purchase it, or was that even an option? I know that there's other sites that do that. Like you rent clothes, and if you like the actual item, you can keep it and pay for it. But I don't know if that was an option for them. I didn't read anything about that, so.
I kind of looked at that a little bit because I was wondering the same thing, and I didn't notice a way that you could do that at all. I don't think that's an option. I think if the dress gets ruined, then it's on you. But other than that, I don't think buy it.
Okay.
I think you have to purchase it from the designer after you wear it, like a regular.
I wonder if they did that because they buy their dresses a little bit cheaper than retail price.
Right.
So I wonder if it's not an option because designers would throw a fit, and they probably see lawsuits and all these sorts of things because they do buy the dresses at a lower price.
Well, and what is the designer going to do once they get the dress back? I mean, it's a used dress at that point. They're not going to be. Will they be able to sell it? I mean, I don't know.
Oh, I think they have to destroy it. You don't pay designer for a used dress.
Right. I think that's why they weren't able to convince these designers to buy into this. Oh, it's you retain ownership of the dress, but we're gonna rent it out for you.
Interesting.
What do you think that's gonna do to their cash flow, though? I'm still really confused on the cash flow curve. So, what do you guys think it's gonna do to that, and why?
Yeah. So if they were able to convince them, their cash flow, so they wouldn't have had to invest so much upfront in inventory. So they wouldn't have had to go out and raise all this money to be able to buy dresses in the first place, because the designer would have retained the ownership. So their cash flow wouldn't have dipped so much. It would have been much shallower, and then it wouldn't have gone so steep either, because since they didn't get these designers convinced on this route, they no longer had to pay them any kind of royalty fees or whatever. I can't remember the exact fees they would have had to pay, and then so it would have been more of a flat cash flow line. But now that they had to buy their own inventory, their cash it dipped way down because they had to spend so much money on inventory.
It takes longer to get a cash positive.
Right. Yeah,
sorry, can you see my screen?
Yeah, Richard's going to show us.
So it's exactly what Danny was just saying. If they have to buy, it's going to take a lot of money just used up to get all of those dresses. But then once they build their customer base and they start selling them, they're going to start coming up really fast. Where if they just rent, it takes a lot less money to get the dresses. But then because they're paying all of the royalty fees, it's just a much flatter line moving up because they don't keep as much of the profits. So
they don't have to pay for all that inventory.
So if you have a lot of capital available to you to cover this deep trough on the buy, it's a really good option because you get really good returns from it. But if you only have a little bit of capital, you don't have the option to do the buy, so you have to go with a different option that creates a smaller trough and still giving you good returns, just not as good of returns.
That makes sense completely.
What decisions did Drew Houston make in Dropbox that favorably impacted the cash flow curve?
I think the way he set up the payment was good. I'm not sure if that actually affected it, but
no, I'm with you. I think the subscription-based payment kind of really helps you. It makes the cash flow more predictable.
That's true.
Instead of having to wonder, oh, how much are people going to pay this month for however many gigs, but they pay a flat rate a month or a yearly rate, and that really helps kind of keep the cash flow a little more steady, a little more predictable, easier to forecast.
Predictable too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I think something else is he leveraged. So it said in the freemium model, a lot of people struggle with it because they just look at the free users as just an expense, without getting much benefit out of them. But what he did is he leveraged them to not just be an expense, but a marketing expense to bring in more customers and therefore more premium customers. And then from there, it's just a matter of trying to increase the conversion rate of free customers to premium customers. So by using his, because in this case, I think the customers would be considered your assets, and so they would create a deeper curve. But by using them more efficiently, he was able to increase the steepness of the positive cash flow.
And I think a lot of those free customers, I mean, once they got using the product and liking the product, several of them probably switched to a more premium so that they could use it more. It's a pretty good product. So
I think that he also, by trying to keep Dropbox simple as possible, like he had a lot of requests for more advanced features that he decided to do. That helped with the cash flow because he didn't have to spend so much on engineering the back end and stuff all the time. That was something. Was that in this case for this class or another class? There was a case where they just spent like a ton of money engineering a website. What case was that?
Yeah, that was the
Cake Financial.
Cake, yeah.
Yes, so they just spent like a ton of money. They just like threw money into developing the website, and then because of all that, their cash flow was just terrible. But Dropbox didn't do that, and he just allocated his money to where it needed to be. So he only spent the cash he absolutely needed to get Dropbox.
That's actually a really good point.
I think that, and the switches he made, like from the marketing techniques he was using, where it cost $300 to acquire a customer, and then they switched to more organic methods of marketing. I think that really helped his cash flow too.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Jose, are you talking? You're on mute.
Jose, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I was mute. We're done with the activities for the recording, but we have the group assignment. We have to decide what you would do if given the opportunity to invest in any one of the three strategies on attractive terms. Which would you choose and why? And as a group, compose your response in a Word document and submit that right up to your instructor. That will be the final assignment for the week as a group.
So are the strategies they're talking about the ones that I am assuming they're talking about? Or am I just completely off? Because when I was asking Richard about this, because I thought there were only 2 strategies. I didn't know there were 3, so.
What the third one would be.
Well, let's just assume there's the 2 strategies and write about one of those 2.
Sounds good.
Let's say it was a typo.
I guess we could ask in the question thing, except I've noticed that the instructor hasn't been looking at the question and answer thing. So.
Oh, the discussion board.
Yeah. Do we want to do this on Google Docs again, and just if you like the way that I set up the one, or I just basically compiled everybody's information, and if there were contradictions, I took out the ones that were kind of out, and then I removed any duplicates. So if someone already talked about certain thing, I just left that, and then any further duplicates I took out. Did that work for everybody? Was that good?
Yeah, I think it was good.
I think it was helpful because we had a lot of information, so I thought, wow, this is great. We got all this information because everybody kind of had something different. There were a few things that were the same, like I said, but I just took those out. Did that work okay?
Was that hard to go in and kind of compile everything?
It really wasn't. I just had to make sure that I was reading through everything. There was a few typos that I changed. And like I said, I was just making sure that the content wasn't repeating itself. And if, there was a completely 180 degree, if someone said, no, I think we need to do this, and then somebody else said, oh, no, we need to do this, I kind of went with the majority of what everybody was thinking and got rid of the contradiction and just compiled it that way. But it wasn't that hard at all to compile.
So I went ahead and created another file in the Google Drive folder that we all have access to, called it REST devices. I think as long as we all come to a conclusion on which option we would choose, we all just need to put in some level of support. So if we choose to say, yeah, we're going to go with the Babies R Us, I can just paste in the decisions that I showed you guys about how to get to a positive cash flow throughout the year to show that it's possible. And then everybody else can put in something about, hey, here's just different reasons why it would work.
I think that's a great idea.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Jose, do you want to compile everything, or?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay. When do you want it all in there by?
Like, I think the time you said, the first week we did this, Saturday at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, that's perfect.
Okay. That works for me.
So Saturday by 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, just have all your information in the Google Doc by 6 Mountain Time on Saturday.
Perfect.
Okay.
Alrighty.
You guys, do you know if for the Zoom meeting, do I have to upload the file? Because I can find any type of link, like in Hangouts.
Oh. Did it give you a file?
Yeah, I have 3 files. Just video, just audio, and combined. So I think I will have to upload the file. I hope it accepts. It's like,
Is there one that says MP4?
I'm sorry?
Is there one that says MP4?
Let me check that out. It's an MP4, yeah.
Yeah, so that should have everything that we need. It'll have the video and the audio associated with it.
152 megas. I hope no problem with the capacity of uploading. So I will do that. Okay.
And
Thank
then
you very much.
And check it if you need to make sure that it worked.
Do we know who's next for next week?
We're going alphabetically. That would be Danny.
Daniel.
Okay.
Okay.
All righty.
Okay.
Do you guys want me to email you the link, or just post it on our discussion board, or what do you want me to do with this half? I think I did everything just to cover my bases last time, so.
Yeah, either way, it will be great. Thank you.
Okay. I'll email it and then I'll put it on the discussion board in case anybody needs it.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Alrighty.
Alrighty. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Hey,
Let us know
have a
if you
good
have
day.
any questions.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.